Hi, my name is Michael Chagnon, and I'm a curator at the Aga Khan Museum. Today, I'd like to talk to you about a drawing in the museum's collection. It depicts a seated man concentrating on an object that he holds in his lap. Though the drawing doesn't contain any inscriptions that tell us where or when it was made, or the artist who made it, based on its style, it's likely that it was produced in Iran during the first half of the 17th century. A time when the country was ruled by the Safavid dynasty. This was a period when single independent pictures, such as this one, focusing on only one or two figures, were widely made by Persian artists. The drawing was later mounted with elegantly dyed and gilded margins for inclusion in a muraka, or album, which would have contained other pictures as well as specimens of calligraphy. When we look closely at the picture, we can see that the artist who made it was a master draftsman, carefully modulating the weight of his lines and varying the amount of detail over the picture surface to create a dynamic and highly textured ink composition, lightly enhanced with pale colors and spots of gold. In a close-up image, we can see more clearly what the subject, a seated man, is doing. He's hunched over, looking intently at the rectangular object that he holds in his lap, while his right hand is held in a way that suggests he's gripping something. Many seated figures like this are known from other pictures of the era, including an illustration in a manuscript known as Akhlaq-i-Nasiri, made in the last decade of the 16th century in Lahore, Pakistan, which was then a capital of the Mughal Empire. The illustration depicts a court atelier with a master artist overseeing multiple other artists. Among them are several seated figures who are practicing calligraphy or making landscape or animal drawings on pieces of paper, supported by firm tablets held in their laps. So it seems clear that the figure in our Persian drawing is a seated artist with a tablet in his lap, ready to practice his craft. Unlike his counterparts in the Mughal illustration, however, he doesn't work as part of a team or in a studio, but alone and outdoors. Moreover, his tablet doesn't show any image of what he's creating, though we might expect to see something here. Even more curiously, a critical tool of his trade, a pen or a brush, is missing, even though his hand is positioned as though it's gripping one. Now, it may be possible that the artist who created the drawing simply didn't get around to finishing it. But given how detailed and finely executed this work is, I'd like to consider whether there's maybe another explanation. Could it be possible that the picture was deliberately left unfinished? That the image on the tablet and the pen or brush were deliberately left absent? If so, why? One explanation can be found in texts about the art of picture making from around the time that this drawing was created. Some of these texts were composed as prefaces to murakas, the picture and calligraphy albums of the kind that this drawing was once included in. One such preface from a muraka made for an Iranian nobleman around the year 1564 or 65 contains a passage about the imaginative power of painters. Its author, Mir Said Ahmed, writes, quote, "It is no secret that the amazing images and wonderful motifs of the practitioners of this craft are well known in every region and are the object of contemplation for those possessed of insight. The imaginative power and elegance of nature that this group has, no one of the other arts possesses. The beauty that unveils its base in the tablet of the painter's mind is not reflected in everyone's imagination." About 10 years later, the year 1576-77, Shamsuddin Mohammed Vasifi, the author of another album's preface, repeats essentially the same thing. Quote, "Truly the beautiful fairy and gorgeous houri manifested on the tablet of the painter's mind and the page of the designer's imagination are not reflected in anyone else's mind. Interestingly, both writers conceive of the artist's imagination as a tablet where the visualization of images occurs at a level of power and beauty that only their kind possesses. The near repetition of this concept in the two prefaces and in similar texts of the era tells us just how widespread it was during the 16th and 17th centuries in Iran. Album preface authors of the period discuss painting from another angle, too, specifically describing divine creation as a miraculous form of painting. For example, a late 15th or early 16th century album preface attributed to the historian Khandemir opens with the following poetic verse, quote, "When the painter of eternity, meaning God, portrayed the sun, he adorned an album with leaves of the celestial sphere. Therein he depicted, without color or brush, many bright-cheeked beauties." What I'd like to suggest then is that our drawing is a visualization of notions of artistry that were current during the Safavid period and encapsulated in texts about painting like those I just quoted. The anonymous artist of our drawing didn't just leave his work unfinished in a casual sense. Rather, the absence of an image on the seated man's tablet, as well as a pen or a brush to execute such an image, may have been deliberate. What we see here is a seated artist deeply engrossed in concentration. But he isn't producing an image, he's thinking about the images that exist in his mind, conceptualized in this period as a tablet. This notion is given concrete, emblematic form by the empty tablet that he holds in his lap. It may even be an invitation to use our own imaginations to supply the missing image. As for his missing pen or brush, this also seems to be related to ideas about artistic creativity that were in circulation. Its very absence from the picture may be a visual hyperbole, aggrandizing the painter's imaginative capacities by likening them to the creative power of God, who executed the, so to speak, picture of the world, quote, without color or brush.